So as many of you know, I'm a huge Richard Dawkins nerd, and the other day I was reading a Richard Dawkins article from about a dozen years ago where he's talking about GMO foods. And he says that he's worried that this hysteria against GMO foods will blind society to the real risk. He seems to be very supportive of GMO foods, thinks that the science behind them can really help people, can save lives, but he thinks that there are real risks. But people being so hysterical and against GMO actually takes the focus off the real risk and puts it on a bunch of bullshit that it shouldn't be on. And at first I was like, what? What the fuck are you talking about, Richard Dawkins? Everybody knows GMO foods are totally terrible. They're evil, man. Everybody knows that. Have you seen the documentaries about them? GMO foods are pure poison, man. But then it hit me. I've actually never really gone out and researched it for myself. I've only watched a few propaganda films on YouTube, like Seeds of Death and The World According to Monsanto and David versus Monsanto. That's all I've really ever seen. I've never really gone out and researched it for myself, so I decided to. And so, of course, the first place I went was Wikipedia. And before you guys even start, say you can't use Wikipedia as a source. I'm not fucking using Wikipedia as a source, okay? You know what I'm using as a source? The hundreds of sourced links to outside reputable scientific sites found at the bottom. That's what I'm linking as a source, man. If you're too fucking lazy to scroll down and click on the links and check them, then you're too fucking stupid to take seriously. You absolutely can use Wikipedia as a jumping off point to find out what the science is. So I went and looked up GMOs on Wikipedia, and what I found was there's a broad scientific consensus that food on the market derived from GM crops pose no greater risk than conventional foods. They've done 25 years of studies. Hundreds of them from the world's most respected scientific organizations, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the American Medical Association, the National Academy of Sciences, the Royal Science of Medicine, the European Commission Director General for Research and Innovation. Pretty much every one of the most respected scientific bodies on earth has studied this for 25 years. They've all come to unanimous conclusion. According to their findings, GMO foods pose no greater risk to the public than regular foods. That's what the science says. 25 years of studies. Go look for yourself. And there's absolutely not a single peer-reviewed study on the other side saying GMOs are bad for you. Go look it up. The only study anybody ever posed to suggest otherwise is the French rat study, which is one of the most debunked studies in the history of science, man. I mean, go look for yourself. The French rat study was so lambasted by all other scientists for being fraudulent junk science that it couldn't even pass the peer review process. There are absolutely zero studies that have passed the peer review process that say GMO foods are any more harmful than normal foods, and there are hundreds of them that have passed the peer review process that say they're fine. That is the science. You either respect the science or you fucking don't. Now, I'm not saying all GMO foods are 100% fine. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying all organic foods are fine. I'm not saying any of that shit. Who knows what we might find in the future? But right now, according to the best science we have, they're fine. Go look it up. So then I was like, okay, well maybe I was wrong about GMOs. Maybe they're not quite as bad as I thought they were. But Monsanto is still evil, man. Everybody knows Monsanto is evil. They're like Cobra from G.I. Joe. You ever watch that show? The most evil organization in the world with their tentacles and everything. Oh man, they're just the most evil motherfuckers on the planet, right? But to be honest with you, besides the propaganda films against Monsanto I watched, I really didn't know that much about it. So I asked on my Facebook, what's really so evil about Monsanto? And the responses I get actually pissed me off. Because the anti-GMO people that came to my page and told me what was so evil about Monsanto were lying their ass off. It turns out these people have not researched shit. They didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. All they did was watch anti-Monsanto propaganda films and fucking feed me lines of bullshit without going out and doing 5-second Google researches themselves to see if what they were saying was true. For example, Peter Gazzaldo. Wind blows cross-pollination from one farm to another. Farmers who don't want Monsanto seeds now have Monsanto genetically identified crop. Monsanto sues the farmer out of business for stealing their seeds, when the only one to blame is the wind. That's why Monsanto are cocksuckers. So I went and looked it up for myself, and it turns out that Monsanto has never sued anybody, not once ever, for cross-pollination or cross-contamination. It has never fucking happened. So how did this idea that Monsanto is going out there and suing all these farmers for cross-pollination get started when they've never even done it once? Well, it turns out there's this guy named Percy Schmeiser who got sued by Monsanto for stealing Monsanto seeds and planting them on his farm. He lied and said these seeds were a result of cross-pollination. He said they just blew on his property, but they went out and tested them, and they found out in one season He had 90% of these seeds in his field. If this were the result of cross-pollination, it's scientifically impossible for these GMO seeds to completely take over his field in one season up to 90%. That's just so ridiculous. In fact, it's so ridiculous that he did not even make this argument in his court case. He did not even argue at all about cross-contamination. I'm guessing because he did not want to perjure himself. But after he lost the trial, he did go out and make a propaganda film making this claim in the propaganda film. And this propaganda film against Monsanto spread. And before you know it, this one incident became Monsanto sues all kinds of farmers over cross-pollination. In fact, I begged them, give me one single example besides this Smizer case, where Monsanto sued any farmer over cross-pollination. And nobody could do it. Nobody gave me a single example because it doesn't exist, because they've never done it. It's an urban legend. It's a myth. It's the most ridiculous twisting of the facts. And anybody who spreads this bullshit without researching it should be ashamed of yourself. It's bullshit. So I was like, all right, well, that's bullshit. What else you got? And Pat Rizzo said, well, how do you justify Terminator seeds? And how can you ignore the potential for crop contamination of these seeds and absolute dependence this could create? Well, Pat, I did a 5-second Google search, and it turns out Monsanto does not sell Terminator seed. If you would have done a 5-second Google search, you would have also found out that Monsanto does not sell Terminator seeds. So why the fuck you people not do 5 seconds of research before you post shit to my wall, before you act like experts? What is wrong with you anti-GMO people? You're fucking pissing me off, man. This shit is not hard to do. You fucking type a sentence into Google, you hit enter, you wait 1 second, and you look to see what the fuck it has to say before you post stupid shit. I mean, come on, people. We're supposed to be the skeptic community. You can do better than this. What else you guys got to say? And then Ray Rookie says, Monsanto also produced crops that can render humans sterile and sent those as aid to Africa. What the fuck are you talking about? No, they didn't. What is wrong with you people? Why would you say something like this? How do you even tie your shoes in the morning? That's ridiculous. I asked this woman, do you have any evidence whatsoever to back this up? Of course, they could not present it. These anti-GMO people are fucking shameless, man. It's fucking ridiculous. And so then to prove how evil Monsanto was, somebody posted me this article, Organic Farmer Sues Monsanto Over GMO Seeds, and they clearly did not even fucking read it themselves. This is a pattern I noticed in these anti-GMOers. They go out and Google shit, and then they post it to my wall without even fucking reading it themselves. This article says a bunch of organic farmers went out and preemptively sued Monsanto, claiming that someday in the future, Monsanto seeds might blow into their field, and in this case, they want to sue Monsanto right now because of it. And of course, the judge laughed them out of court because they could not provide one single example of this happening. And you know, eventually, I started becoming irritated with these people. Every single one of them seems to have started with a preconceived notion that Monsanto is evil. And they set out to find evidence that that is true and ignore all evidence to the contrary. So what else you anti-GMOers got? Thomas B. Nelson says, if they have nothing to hide, why are they so afraid of labels? This is such a dumb question. It's very obvious why GMO makers do not want foods labeled. It's because the public has been so propagandized against GMO foods that they're terrified of them. So if they label these foods as GMO, the public will buy less of them, and it will hurt Monsanto and the farmers who plant Monsanto seeds' bottom line. It's simple capitalism. It's all about money. This is not rocket science, people. It's obvious. What else? Aaron, I shit you not, says, go beyond GMO and take a look at the lawsuits they have filed against American farmers. Monsanto are still one of the most corrupt corporations on the planet. Do you condone the use of Terminator seeds too, Dusty Smith? Well, first of all, I did go look at the lawsuits, and yes, Monsanto sues a lot of farmers, but almost every one of these cases is because farmers signed contracts with Monsanto and then violated the contracts. Nobody is forcing these farmers to use Monsanto seeds. There are plenty of seed companies, and no one is forcing these farmers to sign these contracts. If you sign a contract with anybody, including Monsanto, and then you breach that contract, you should expect to be sued. Why are farmers any different? And Monsanto always wins their lawsuits. They always win. You know why? Because they don't sue farmers unless farmers actually breach the contracts. And guess what? When Monsanto does win these lawsuits, they donate the money to charity. How fucking evil can you get? And then Sean Hoyle, without doing 5 seconds of Google search, linked me this article about Indian farmers committing suicide as a result of Monsanto GM crops. Apparently, according to this, all these Indian farmers are so despondent about Monsanto GMO crops are killing themselves in masses like the world has never seen before. I did one Google search and found an article from Discovery Magazine that said it's not only inaccurate but simply wrong to blame the use of Bt cotton as the primary cause of farmer suicides in India, said the report from the International Food Policy Research Institute in Washington, D.C. Despite the recent media hype around farmer suicide, fueled by civil social organizations and reaching the highest political spheres in India and elsewhere, there is no evidence and available data of a resurgence of farmer suicide in India in the last 5 years. On top of that, it also found out that adoption of pest-resistant BT cotton varieties led to a 40% decrease in pesticide use. So once again, these anti-GMO people and these anti-Monsanto people, they will fucking say anything, they will spread anything, facts do not matter, they don't give a shit, and they do not research. They don't give a fuck about the research. They will do one Google search, find an article, and post it to you like it's gospel without checking in on it. And to me, that's offensive. I am not here to Google shit for you lazy-minded motherfuckers. Before you post shit to my wall, research it yourself and make sure it's accurate. So the next bullshit the anti-GMOers threw at me was Monsanto doesn't let farmers reuse their seed. And this is so evil. Why don't they let the farmers reuse their seeds? Well, apparently, according to NPR, which I found out with a 5-second Google search, most farmers do not reuse seed anyway. They buy new seed every year, and this practice got started well before Monsanto even came along. In fact, Monsanto is not the only seed company that doesn't let you reuse seeds. This is standard practice with many seed companies. And since most farmers buy new seed every year anyway, it's not a problem. And if these farmers want to reuse their seeds, it's very simple. Don't buy seeds from Monsanto and don't sign a contract saying you won't do it. Simply buy your seeds from another seed company that allows you to reuse them. It's not difficult, people. So the next bullshit argument people gave me was that if these GMO crops are so fine, how come so many countries are banning them? Well, almost every country on earth has banned weed. Does that mean weed is evil? Of fucking course not, man. Countries ban shit all the time for all kinds of bullshit reasons. There are lots of books banned in lots of countries all over the earth. Does that mean those books are evil? No, that doesn't mean that. Just because some dumbass politician bans something does not mean they even know what the fuck they're talking about, okay? It's just such a fucktarded argument, just like all these arguments are. So the next argument they gave me was actually sort of a good argument, I thought at first. They said that these GMO crops use a lot of herbicide, man. They just pour Roundup on these crops, and it's really bad for us all because Roundup is terrible, man. If you even get within 10 feet of Roundup, man, you spontaneous combust, man. We shouldn't have this shit all over our plants. So I went and looked it up, and I found that GMO crops are using far less pesticides than the last generation of crops used. It's not even close, far less, but they are actually using more herbicides. That's true. They're using more Roundup-based herbicides. But I actually went and looked it up, and it turns out that the Roundup-based herbicides, even though they're using more of it, is much, much, much safer, less toxic, and better for water runoff than the old type that they used to use on non-GMO crops. It's way less toxic. So even though they're using more of it, it's much safer according to the studies. Now, am I saying Roundup is safe for you? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's safer than what we used before. I'm not really sure how you can call Monsanto evil for coming up with a better solution than what we had before. Is it a perfect solution? No. Can we have a better solution than this? Yes. Will science eventually figure out a better herbicide than Roundup? Yes. But is Roundup better than what we had before? Fucking yes, it is. I'm sorry. If you don't like the science, that's not my problem. If you inject Roundup in animals, could it cause mutations and shit? Fucking course it could. But if you inject the old herbicides we used to use before GMO foods in animals, it will fuck them up much worse. So you really have to look at this stuff on the scale that they're actually on. So the next thing they brought up was that the GMOs are causing bee colony collapse disorder. So of course I went and looked it up and found out there is no data in the scientific literature supporting this whatsoever. I asked for studies that have passed the peer review process that show this. Nobody could provide any. And let me tell you, man, as I began to point this stuff out to people, they got really mad at me. I've lost over 100 friends the last few days on my Facebook. They began to talk to me and say shit like, Dusty, you're in love with Monsanto, man. It's obvious they paid you off. Fuck, man, I wish Monsanto had paid me off. That'd be awesome, man. But the truth is, ain't nobody paid me shit. I simply went out and researched for myself. So yeah, man, after my research, I have a really bad taste in my mouth for anti-GMO people. I found them to be incredibly dishonest. And you know what I hate about anti-GMO truthers the most? The fact that they made me defend Monsanto, because I fucking can't stand Monsanto. There are plenty of reasons to hate Monsanto without having to resort to lies and misrepresentations just to slime them. It makes your side look terrible when you do this. The truth is, science has doubled our life expectancy. Science has cured so many diseases. Science has given us so much in this world. And by science trying to improve the food supply, by making sure shit grows better and feeds more people, that's exactly what science should be doing. Being afraid of GMO foods just because they're GMO is the most ridiculous shit ever. This is exactly what science should be doing. And I can't agree with Richard Dawkins more. The problem with all this anti-GMO hysteria is it pulls the attention away from real issues. There are real issues with GMO crops. There are serious concerns that we need to address. But by lying and misrepresenting the information, you pull attention away from the areas they really should be in, and you do this entire thing a great disservice. Just because I defend Monsanto against lies does not mean I love Monsanto. It means I hate lies. And I really fucking hate liars. So all I'm saying is this. Do not go out and spread information that you hear in propaganda videos without going out and researching for yourself first. At least do 5 seconds of Google research to find out if what you're saying is true or not. Propaganda videos are not an accurate source of information. And I'm even fucking talking about myself. Don't believe a word I say in this video. Fucking don't. If you believe a word I say without going and looking this shit up for yourself, you're a fucking idiot. Don't trust me. Trust the evidence and go look for yourself. Because that's the only way in this world you'll ever end up being logical. Logic.